The shadows of history are long, and in the Middle East, they are often cast by the towering ambitions of three nations: the United States, Israel, and Iran. For decades, the global audience has watched this geopolitical chess match unfold, often forgetting that the pieces on the board are not wooden figures, but living, breathing human beings. To understand the current state of tension, one must look past the headlines of good and evil. In reality, there is no hero and no villain in a story where everyone is bleeding. The relationship between Washington, Jerusalem, and Tehran has evolved from strategic alliances to a bitter, existential rivalry. But as the rhetoric from world leaders grows louder, the cries of the common people are being drowned out. This documentary seeks to peel back the layers of political propaganda and look at the raw and filtered cost of this standoff. From the depths of the Indian Ocean to the high-pressure meeting rooms of the Pentagon, the cracks in the foundation of war are beginning to show. One of the most harrowing examples of the collateral damage of this conflict occurred recently in the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean, and an era where maritime trade is the lifeblood of the global economy. The sea has become a dangerous front line. A commercial vessel, caught in the crossfire of regional posturing, met a catastrophic end. The numbers are chilling. There were approximately 150 people on board: sailors, engineers, and support staff from various nationalities who had nothing to do with the political disputes of the Big Three. When the ship went down, the ocean became a graveyard. Initial reports suggest that between 84 and 87 individuals lost their lives in the frigid, dark waters. The rescue operation was a desperate race against time. According to news reports, maritime authorities, potentially including Australian rescue teams, managed to pull 30 to 31 survivors from the wreckage. Imagine the scene: a handful of traumatized men clinging to debris, watching their friends and colleagues disappear beneath the waves. This incident wasn't just a logistical loss or a strategic strike. It was a massacre of the innocent. Why did these 87 people have to die? To send a message. To prove a point. When we tally the wins and losses of international conflict, the 87 families waiting for phone calls that will never come are the true measure of failure, while the seas run red with the blood of civilians. The internal structures of the world's superpowers are starting to fracture from within. A remarkable and disturbing event recently unfolded in the United States that highlights the growing fatigue among those expected to fight these wars. During a high-level military briefing regarding the potential for an invasion or escalation against Iran, the atmosphere was thick with tactical jargon and maps of targets. But the clinical nature of the meeting was shattered by a single voice. A young American soldier, a man trained for combat but guided by his conscience, stood up in the middle of the hall. He didn't use a weapon. He used his voice. He shouted with a desperation that resonated far beyond the room. "We do not want to fight in Iran. Our mothers do not want us there. Our fathers do not want us there." It was a moment of pure, unadulterated truth. He was speaking for the thousands of soldiers who are tired of being sent to foreign lands to fight wars that have no clear end and no clear purpose. The response from the establishment was not a dialogue, but a suppression. Security personnel and fellow soldiers moved in to silence the dissenter. In the violent struggle to drag him out of the room, a tragic accident occurred. His arm became wedged in the heavy doors or the furniture of the hall as he was being pulled away. The physical force used to quiet his plea for peace resulted in his arm being snapped, a literal breaking of a human being for the crime of wanting to stay home. This image of a broken soldier is a powerful metaphor for the state of modern warfare. We are breaking our own people in an attempt to break our enemies. This incident highlights a growing disconnect between the strategic ambitions of a government and the human desires of the soldiers who are expected to carry them out. To sustain this level of global tension, the nations involved have invested trillions of dollars into the most sophisticated killing machines ever devised. The United States utilizes its famous strategic bombers, the B-52s, E-1 South, and the stealthy B-2 South, which are capable of carrying enough firepower to level entire cities. Then there is the F-15 Eagle, a jet that has been a staple of aerial combat for decades. These aircraft are promoted as symbols of freedom and strength, but in the context of a potential war with Iran or the defense of Israel, they are simply harbingers of mass destruction. On the other side, Iran has not remained idle. Their development of long-range drones and precision missiles has turned the region into a powder keg. Israel, with its Iron Dome and Arrow defense systems, lives in a constant state of high alert, where the sky is often filled with the streaks of interceptor missiles. But what does this technological race achieve? For every advanced F-15 that takes flight, millions of dollars are diverted from healthcare, education, and infrastructure. We are perfecting the art of the YouTube bomb, a high-definition explosion that looks impressive on a screen but leaves behind a reality of scorched earth and shattered families. The F-15 is a masterpiece of engineering, yes, but it cannot fix a broken economy, and it certainly cannot bring back the 87 sailors lost at sea. In any documentary discussing the USA, Israel, and Iran, there is a temptation to ask, who is winning? The answer is haunting: no one. If Israel launches a preemptive strike to ensure its survival, it invites a rain of missiles that will kill its own civilians. If Iran retaliates to defend its sovereignty, it invites a crushing response from the world's largest military power that will destroy its ancient cities and its youth. If the United States enters another conflict in the Middle East, it will see more of its soldiers like the one with the broken arm shattered physically and mentally. While its national debt spirals and its global reputation fades, war is a zero-sum game. The victory of a successful bombing run is offset by the defeat of a generation lost to trauma. The 31 survivors of the Indian Ocean ship don't feel like they won. They feel the weight of the 87 who didn't make it. The soldier who shouted for peace didn't lose his conviction. He only lost the use of his arm. We must also look at the civilians on the ground in Tel Aviv and Tehran. There is a common thread of fear that connects a mother in an Israeli bomb shelter to a student in the streets of Iran. Both are living under the shadow of decisions made by men in suits who live in secure bunkers. In Iran, the youth are caught between a government that refuses to back down and international sanctions that make it impossible to buy medicine or build a future. In Israel, the constant threat of conflict creates a society that is perpetually on edge, where military service is a mandatory rite of passage that often ends in tragedy. The documentary evidence shows that the animosity between these nations is often a top-down construction. If you were to put a civilian from the USA, a civilian from Israel, and a civilian from Iran in a room together, they would likely find they have more in common with each other than they do with the politicians who are pushing them toward war. They all want stable jobs, healthy children, and a world where they don't have to worry about a ship sinking or a bomb falling. The conflict between these three nations does not exist in a vacuum. It affects the entire world. The incident in the Indian Ocean is a prime example. When trade routes become combat zones, the cost of goods increases for everyone. A farmer in a remote village or a factory worker in a developing nation feels the impact of a drone strike in the Middle East through the price of fuel and food. Furthermore, the environmental impact of modern warfare is rarely discussed. The carbon footprint of a single F-15 mission or the pollution caused by a sunken 150-person vessel is astronomical. We are destroying the planet to fight over borders that have shifted for thousands of years and will likely shift again. The story of the American soldier who stood up to his commanders is perhaps the most important part of this narrative. It represents a shift in consciousness. For a long time, the military-industrial complex relied on the silent obedience of the rank and file. But as information becomes more accessible and the horrors of war become more visible, that silence is breaking. Even if that soldier was dragged out of the room, even if his arm was broken, his message was heard. It was filmed, it was shared, and it was felt. It reminds us that every individual has the power to say no. No to unnecessary death. No to the sinking of ships. No to the destruction of families.